August 15, 1945. Inside a sealed vault beneath the ruins of Tokyo, American intelligence officers discovered something that would remain classified for decades. Reel-to-reel recordings. Thousands of hours. The voices of Japan's highest military commanders, captured without their knowledge, speaking words they never intended the world to hear. Words of dawning horror. Words of mathematical impossibility. Words that revealed the exact moment they understood they were fighting an enemy whose industrial power existed on a scale beyond human comprehension. What those recordings revealed wasn't just military secrets. It was the sound of an empire realizing it had declared war on a force of nature. November 3, 1943. 0340 hours. Station HYPO, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Lieutenant Commander Alvin Denniston stared at the oscilloscope display showing voice patterns from intercepted Japanese military communications. What began as routine signals intelligence had evolved into something unprecedented in military history: the systematic recording of enemy leadership discussions in real time. The capability emerged from a convergence of three separate intelligence programs. The first was MAGIC, the cryptographic breakthrough that had cracked Japanese diplomatic codes in 1940. The second was the submarine cable tap operation codenamed Threadbare, installed by USS Spearfish on underwater communication lines connecting Tokyo to field commands. The third, and most revolutionary, was the voice intercept system developed by Bell Telephone Laboratories in collaboration with the Office of Strategic Services. Technical specifications documented in NSA archives revealed the system's sophistication. Magnetic wire recorders, modified from German designs captured in North Africa, could continuously record for up to 8 hours per spool. The installation at Pearl Harbor featured 47 recording stations operating simultaneously. Each station monitored specific Japanese military frequencies, automatically activated by voice transmission detection systems. The breakthrough came from understanding Japanese communication protocols. Unlike American forces, which maintained strict radio silence before operations, Japanese commanders conducted frequent planning discussions over supposedly secure telephone lines. These lines, running through undersea cables and microwave relay stations, proved vulnerable to interception at multiple points. By late 1943, American intelligence had established listening posts at 17 locations across the Pacific. Station HYPO at Pearl Harbor served as the central coordination facility. Subsidiary stations operated on Midway, Guadalcanal, Dutch Harbor, Brisbane, and aboard specially equipped destroyer escorts designated as communications research vessels. The personnel requirements were staggering. Over 1,200 linguists, most of them second-generation Japanese Americans from the Military Intelligence Service Language School, worked in rotating shifts transcribing and translating intercepted conversations. Security protocols required all personnel to maintain top-secret/special intelligence clearances. Nobody involved could discuss their work, even with family members. Commander Joseph Rochefort, who had led the intelligence effort at Midway, understood the strategic value immediately. According to declassified memos dated December 1943, he wrote, "We are not merely reading the enemy's mail. We are sitting in their conference rooms. We are hearing their doubts, their fears, their calculations." For the first time in military history, we can document the moment when an enemy realizes they cannot win. The recording quality varied considerably. Some intercepts captured crystal-clear conversations. Others required extensive audio enhancement and analysis. Bell Labs engineers developed noise reduction techniques specifically for this purpose, technology that would later revolutionize civilian telecommunications. What emerged from those thousands of hours of recordings was something intelligence analysts had not anticipated. Not just tactical information about troop movements or naval deployments, but something far more valuable: insight into Japanese strategic thinking and the psychological impact of confronting American industrial capacity. The recordings would document, in the voices of Japan's own military leadership, the precise moment when confidence transformed into desperation. February 17, 1944. 2,315 hours Tokyo time. The recording that would later be designated Intercept TRUK 021744 Alpha captured a conversation between Admiral Manichi Koga, Commander-in-Chief of the Combined Fleet, and Vice Admiral Takeo Kurita, commanding the Second Fleet. The discussion took place over a secure telephone line connecting Truk Lagoon to Tokyo. Neither officer knew their conversation was being recorded 2,400 miles away. The transcript, declassified in 1978, revealed Koga's voice, strained and tired. "The American fleet that attacked us today, Kurita, I need you to understand what I am about to tell you. We counted 73 carriers. Not ships. Carriers. Our intelligence estimated the Americans possessed perhaps 30 fleet carriers total. 73 attacked Truk today." There was a long pause in the recording. Then Kurita's response, "Admiral, that number cannot be correct. There must be an error in identification. Perhaps they are counting escort vessels." Koga interrupted, his voice rising. "I know what a carrier looks like, Kurita. I watched through binoculars as wave after wave launched from ships extending to the horizon. Our air groups are destroyed. 46 vessels sunk. We lost 270 aircraft on the ground. Do you understand? They built carriers faster than we could count them." The attack on Truk, codenamed Operation Hailstone, had struck the Japanese Gibraltar of the Pacific with overwhelming force. American intelligence knew the raid's impact from battle reports. But the recordings revealed something more valuable, the psychological shock rippling through Japanese Naval Command. Another intercept from February 19 captured Vice Admiral Shigeru Fukudome reporting to Imperial General Headquarters. His voice, according to the translator's notes, sounded hollow, defeated. "The Americans are operating with industrial capacity we cannot comprehend. Each month they are launching more tonnage than our entire naval construction program for the war. This is not a gap we can close. This is mathematics that makes victory impossible." Lieutenant Sarah Hoffman, one of the senior translators at Station HYPO, later testified in declassified interviews about the impact these recordings had on American intelligence analysts. "We had statistical reports, production figures, logistics assessments. But hearing Japanese admirals speak these words in real time, hearing the defeat in their voices, that drove home the reality. They were beginning to understand they'd entered a war they could not win." The recordings from February and March 1944 documented a pattern. Japanese commanders were receiving reports from across the Pacific that contradicted everything their pre-war intelligence had told them about American industrial capacity. The escort carriers, the Liberty ships, the ammunition expenditure, all existed on scales that Japanese planning had considered impossible. An intercept dated March 8, 1944, captured General Hideki Tojo, Prime Minister and Minister of War, in conversation with General Yashijiro Umezu, Vice Chief of the Army General Staff. Tojo's voice carried a note of barely controlled anger. "Our intelligence services failed us catastrophically. We were told America was soft, divided, incapable of sustained industrial effort. Instead, they are producing weapons at rates that exceed our most pessimistic estimates by factors of 10, 20, in some categories 50 times our capacity." May 12, 1944. 1,420 hours. An intercepted conversation between Admiral Somu Toyoda, newly appointed Commander-in-Chief of the Combined Fleet, and his Chief of Staff, Rear Admiral Ryanosuke Kusaka, revealed the moment Japanese naval leadership confronted quantitative reality. The recording, designated Intercept Tokyo 051244 Gamma, would become one of the most studied intelligence documents of the Pacific War. Toyoda's voice carried the weight of impossible responsibility. "Kusaka, I need you to verify these figures again. The Americans have launched how many Essex-class carriers?" Kusaka's response came with clinical precision: 17 completed and operational as of last week, Admiral. Intelligence indicates 8 more in advanced stages of construction. The first Essex entered service in December 1942. That represents 17 fleet carriers in 18 months. The sound of papers rustling came through the recording. Then Toyota again, "And we have completed how many carriers in the same period?" A long pause. 3, Admiral Taiho, Shokaku, and Unryu. Though Shokaku was completed before the period you reference. Another pause, longer this time. When Toyota spoke again, his voice had changed. They are building fleet carriers, ships requiring 20,000 workers and millions of man-hours, faster than we can build destroyers. This is not a war. This is. I don't have words for what this is. The recordings from May and June 1944 revealed Japanese military leadership conducting systematic analyses of American production capacity, each assessment more sobering than the last. An intercept from May 28 captured a conversation between Colonel Takashiro Hattori, chief of the operations section, and Lieutenant General Torishiro Kawabe. Hattori presented numbers. American aircraft production for 1943, 96,318 aircraft. Our production for the same year, 16,693 aircraft. The ratio is nearly 6-1. Kawabe's response, and for 1944, American production is projected to exceed 100,000 aircraft. Ours will reach perhaps 28,000 if we meet every target. The pause in the recording lasted 11 seconds. Then Kawabe, these numbers make the Doolittle raid look like a gesture of strategic insignificance. They can afford to expend aircraft on symbolic gestures. We cannot afford losses even in decisive battles. Intelligence analysts at Station HYPO noted a shift in the tone and content of intercepted communications starting in mid-1944. Prior intercepts had focused on tactical planning, operational coordination, and strategic objectives. The new intercepts increasingly featured discussions about mathematics, production rates, and resource allocation, conversations characterized by growing desperation. Dr. Edwin Layton, Pacific Fleet Intelligence Officer, wrote in a memo dated June 15, 1944, "The enemy is beginning to calculate backward from defeat. They are no longer planning how to win. They are calculating how long they can delay the inevitable." This represents a fundamental shift in Japanese strategic thinking, and it is happening in real time in these recordings. An intercept from June 19, during the Battle of the Philippine Sea, captured what would become known among intelligence analysts as the resignation conversation. Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa, commanding the 1st Mobile Fleet, reported to Admiral Toyota after losing 3 carriers and approximately 600 aircraft in what American pilots called the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. Ozawa's voice sounded hollow. "We cannot replace what we lost today. They can replace what they lost in a matter of weeks." This is the new arithmetic of naval warfare, and every equation ends the same way. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. July 18, 1944. 0815 hours. The intercepted communication designated Intercept Tokyo 071844 Delta would become one of the most significant recordings in the entire collection. Prime Minister Hideki Tojo, in a secure telephone conversation with Field Marshal Hajime Sugiyama, Chief of the Army General Staff, discussed the fall of Saipan. The American conquest of the island had placed B-29 Superfortress bombers within striking distance of the Japanese home islands. Tojo's voice, normally controlled and authoritative, carried unmistakable strain. "Sugiyama, explain to me how 30,000 soldiers, well supplied and in prepared defensive positions, were eliminated in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Tarawa took 3 days and they consider it costly. Saipan had 10 times the defenders and lasted only 7 times as long." Sugiyama's response came carefully. "Prime Minister, the American material advantage." Tojo interrupted, "Do not speak to me of material advantage as if it were weather or terrain. This is not advantage. This is disproportion that makes defense meaningless. Our men fought with courage. They inflicted casualties. And still the Americans advanced as if our resistance were merely an inconvenience to be absorbed and overcome." The recording captured a moment of silence before Tojo continued, his voice dropping. "I have reviewed the intelligence assessments. The ammunition expenditure alone, the Americans fired more artillery shells in the Saipan operation than our entire army possesses in reserve. They can afford to expend in 3 weeks what would represent our strategic stockpile for 6 months of operations. Another intercept from July 20th captured an even more revealing conversation. General Yashijiro Yumizu, who would replace Sugiyama as chief of the Army General Staff, spoke with General Korechika Anami about the strategic implications of Saipan's fall. The recording quality was exceptional, every word clearly audible. Yumizu stated flatly, the B-29s will begin operations within weeks. Our cities will burn. We lack the fighter aircraft to defend against high-altitude bombing. We lack the industrial capacity to replace losses. We lack the fuel to train pilots adequately. We lack the time to address any of these deficiencies. Enemy responded, then what do you propose? The pause lasted 8 seconds. I propose we acknowledge reality, General. We are fighting an enemy that produces more war material in a single month than we can produce in a year. The mathematics are simple. The conclusion is inevitable. The only question is how many of our people will die before we accept it. Intelligence analysts at Station HYPO recognized the significance immediately. Lieutenant Commander Jasper Williams wrote in his assessment, "This is not tactical pessimism. This is strategic capitulation occurring at the highest levels of Japanese military command." They are speaking words that, in Japanese military culture, represent unthinkable defeatism. The recordings suggest internal collapse is occurring faster than battlefield defeat. The Saipan intercepts revealed something else troubling to American intelligence. Japanese leaders were beginning to calculate not victory conditions, but surrender conditions. An intercept from July 22 captured Vice Admiral Takajiro Onishi discussing with Admiral Toyota what terms might be acceptable. The Americans will demand unconditional surrender. But perhaps, if we inflict sufficient casualties, if we demonstrate sufficient resolve, they might accept terms that preserve the imperial system. September 3, 1944. 1,340 hours. Recording intercept Tokyo 090344 Epsilon documented a conversation that American intelligence analysts would later describe as the moment Japanese leadership confronted the industrial abyss. Minister of Munitions Nobusuke Kishi spoke with Admiral Shigetaro Shimada, former Navy minister, about production realities that could no longer be ignored. Kishi's voice carried professional detachment describing catastrophic facts. Our steel production for 1944 will reach approximately 5.9 million tons if we meet projected targets. American steel production for 1944 is estimated at 89.6 million tons. The ratio is 15-1, Admiral. 15-1. Shimada responded, in our aluminum production, we will produce perhaps 140,000 tons this year. The Americans will produce 920,000 tons. 7-1. For copper, the disparity is similar. For oil. Kishi paused. Admiral, we produce essentially no oil. We depend entirely on captured territories. The Americans produce more oil in a single week than we can import in a year, even with all shipping dedicated to petroleum transport. The recording captured what sounded like papers being set down. Then Shimada, these numbers explain why every battle report sounds the same. Superior enemy forces. Overwhelming firepower. Inexhaustible supplies. We are not losing battles to tactical failure. We are being buried under industrial output we cannot match. Intelligence translation notes indicated Shimada's voice had become resigned, almost philosophical as he continued. We went to war believing American society was too soft, too divided, too devoted to comfort to sustain total war. Instead, they transformed their economy into a war machine operating at scales we cannot comprehend. Every assumption our planning was based upon has proven catastrophically wrong. An intercept from September 15th captured an even more detailed discussion. General Kuniaki Koiso, who had recently become Prime Minister, convened a meeting with economic and military planners. The recording ran for 47 minutes, the longest single intercept in the collection. Finance Minister Shigeki Ikeda presented figures methodically. Gentlemen, let me provide context for our industrial position. The Americans are currently operating 175 major shipyards. We have 24. They launched 1,200 major vessels last year. We launched 122. For every ship we complete, they complete 10. For every aircraft, 6. For every tank, 8. Someone, identified later as Army Minister Hajime Sugiyama, asked, "Can we increase our production rates?" Ikeda's response was blunt, "Minister, we are already operating beyond sustainable capacity. Our workers are exhausted. Our machine tools are worn beyond specifications. Our raw material supplies are uncertain. We could perhaps increase production by 10%, maybe 15% through superhuman effort. The Americans are increasing their production by 20% annually while maintaining civilian living standards we cannot approach even in peacetime." The recording captured several seconds of silence before Koiso spoke. "Then our strategy of attrition is, what would you call it?" "Impossible, Prime Minister," Ikeda responded. "We cannot attrite an enemy that replaces losses faster than we can inflict them. This is not warfare. This is industrial annihilation." October 25, 1944. 0625 hours. The Battle of Leyte Gulf produced some of the most dramatic recordings in the entire intelligence collection. Real-time interceptions captured Japanese naval commanders coordinating what would become the largest naval battle in history, and simultaneously realizing they were fighting with forces already defeated by arithmetic. Recording intercept Lady 102544 Zeta captured Admiral Takeo Kurita commanding the Sender Force as it approached American landing beaches. His conversation with Vice Admiral Mato Magaki revealed the desperation of Japanese naval strategy. Kurita's transmission, intercepted and recorded at Station HYPO, carried audible strain, "Ogaki, I am proceeding toward the landing area. My force has been reduced significantly by submarine attacks and airstrikes. I must ask, where are the promised air support aircraft?" Bugaki's response came with painful honesty, "Admiral, the air groups that were supposed to support your operation no longer exist. American carrier strikes yesterday destroyed most of our remaining aircraft on the ground. The pilots we have left. Kurita, we are sending them on one-way missions. We call them special attack units." The recording captured Kurita's sharp intake of breath. "You are telling me the Navy has resorted to suicide tactics? That our pilot training program has collapsed so completely we are expending men as ammunition? Admiral, we lack the fuel to train pilots adequately. We lack the time to train them properly. We lack the aircraft to provide them for training. The Americans are shooting down our experienced pilots faster than we can replace them with trained aviators. The special attack is not a choice. It is mathematical necessity." Another intercept from later that same day captured what intelligence analysts consider the most significant moment of the battle. After receiving reports of massive American naval forces defending the landing beaches, Kurita ordered his Sender Force to withdraw. His transmission to Combined Fleet Headquarters revealed his reasoning: "I am breaking off the attack. The American forces present include multiple carrier groups, battleship formations, and destroyer screens beyond anything our intelligence indicated. To continue would not be a battle. It would be the annihilation of Japan's last viable naval force for no strategic gain." Admiral Toyoda's response came through clearly: "Kurita, you have your orders. The entire operation depends on your force reaching those beaches." Kurita's final transmission before radio silence shocked American intelligence officers listening in real time: "Admiral Toyoda, I am preserving my force because Japan will need these ships for homeland defense. The Philippines cannot be held. Leyte cannot be held. We are delaying the inevitable, not preventing it. I refuse to waste ships and men on operations that arithmetic has already decided." The conversation represented something unprecedented, a Japanese commander refusing orders based on strategic calculations that acknowledged inevitable defeat. Lieutenant Commander Robert Finnegan, senior analyst at Station HYPO, noted in his report, "Kurita's decision represents the logical conclusion of everything we've been hearing in these intercepts for months. Japanese naval leadership no longer believes they can win. They are making decisions based on preserving forces for a last defense, not on achieving victory. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. December 9th, 1944. 2140 hours. Recording intercept Tokyo 120944 Theta captured what American intelligence would later classify as the strategic surrender conversation. The intercept featured Foreign Minister Mamoru Shigemitsu speaking with former Prime Minister Fumimaro Kono in what they believed was a secure private telephone line. The conversation revealed that Japan's civilian leadership had reached conclusions the military refused to acknowledge publicly. Shigemitsu's voice carried weary resignation. "Prince Kono, I must speak plainly. We have lost this war. Not recently. Not at Leyte or Saipan. We lost it the day we attacked Pearl Harbor. We simply didn't understand we had lost until the evidence became undeniable." Kono responded, "The military still speaks of decisive battles, of inflicting unacceptable casualties, of defending the homeland." "The military speaks of fantasies," Shigemitsu interrupted. "I have reviewed the intelligence assessments personally. The Americans are now producing more war material in a single month than our entire economy produced in 1941. They have not even fully mobilized their industrial capacity. They are fighting a two-front war against us in Germany while maintaining civilian living standards that exceed our best peacetime years." The recording captured the sound of glasses being set down, suggesting they were drinking during the conversation. Kono spoke again, "Then what do you propose?" "The military will never accept surrender while we retain any capacity to resist." Shigemitsu's response would prove prophetic. "The Americans will force the decision. They are developing weapons we cannot counter. Our intelligence services report work on atomic bombs, though I can scarcely believe such things are possible. Even without such weapons, they can burn our cities at will. They have destroyed Germany's capacity to resist through strategic bombing. They will do the same to us." An intercept from December 15th revealed that even hardline military leaders were privately acknowledging reality. General Korechika Hanami, Vice Minister of War, spoke with General Yashijiro Yumizu about homeland defense preparations. The conversation, lasting 32 minutes, documented the impossibility of Japan's military position. Hanami presented the situation methodically. "We have approximately 2.3 million men under arms in the home islands. We possess perhaps 5,000 aircraft, many of them trainers adapted for combat. We have stockpiled enough ammunition for perhaps 90 days of intensive combat. Our petroleum reserves would sustain operations for perhaps 45 days. Yumizu asked, "And the American invasion force will number?" Intelligence estimates between 1.5 and 2 million men in the initial assault waves alone. They will have complete air superiority. Naval gunfire support beyond anything we can counter. Logistics capacity to sustain operations indefinitely. General Yumizu, our soldiers will fight with courage and determination. And they will be slaughtered by industrial firepower we cannot match." The recording captured a long silence before Yumizu spoke. "Then our strategy of making the invasions so costly they will accept negotiated peace." Enemy's response was blunt, "It is not a strategy. It is hope disguised as planning. The Americans have demonstrated repeatedly they will accept casualties we consider unbearable and continue operations without pause. They lost 6,000 men taking Iwo Jima and considered it an acceptable cost. They will lose far more invading the homeland and still prevail because they can replace losses and we cannot." Lieutenant Commander Sarah Brennan, analyzing the intercept at Station HYPO, wrote in her assessment, "The recordings now consistently show Japanese military and civilian leadership in agreement about the inevitability of defeat. The only remaining debates concern timing and terms. This represents complete strategic collapse occurring before actual invasion. The recordings suggest Japan's leadership is psychologically defeated even while military resistance continues." An intercept from December 28 captured Admiral Mitsumasa Yanai, Navy Minister, speaking with Admiral Toyota about the fundamental miscalculation that doomed Japan's war effort. Yanai's voice carried bitter reflection. We believed American industrial capacity was inflated by propaganda. We believed their society was too soft for total war. We believed our warrior spirit would overcome their material advantages. Every belief was wrong. They are producing weapons at scales that make our total war effort look like a minor regional conflict. March 26, 1945. 0825 hours. Recording intercept Tokyo 032645 Omega captured what would become the final strategic assessment by Japan's Supreme War Council before Hiroshima. The intercept featured Prime Minister Kantaro Suzuki, who had replaced Koiso in April, conducting an emergency conference with military and civilian leadership. The audio quality was exceptional, every word crystal clear. Suzuki opened the meeting with stark directness. Gentlemen, I have requested this session because we must confront reality without the illusions that have guided our strategy thus far. General Yumizu, please provide your assessment of our current military position. Yumizu's response came with military precision. Prime Minister, our situation is as follows. We have lost Iwo Jima, providing the Americans with fighter bases that now escort their bombers to any target in Japan. We have lost Okinawa, providing them with staging bases for invasion. Our remaining naval forces are insufficient for any offensive operations. Our air forces have been reduced to special attack units with minimal training. Our industrial capacity operates at approximately 30% of 1941 levels due to bombing and resource shortages. Army Minister Anami continued, our defensive strategy relies on inflicting maximum casualties during the American invasion. However, we must acknowledge that American industrial capacity means they can sustain casualty rates we would consider catastrophic. Intelligence reports indicate they are prepared to accept up to 1 million casualties to achieve unconditional surrender. The recording captured Foreign Minister Shigenori Togo's interjection, and our casualties in such a defense. A long pause. Then enemy, civilian and military combined, estimated between 10 and 20 million. The Americans have demonstrated in their bombing campaign that they will not distinguish between military and civilian targets. They will burn our cities systematically until we surrender or until nothing remains to burn. Navy Minister Yanai spoke next, his voice reflecting the despair documented in months of intercepted conversations. Prime Minister, I must state plainly what everyone in this room knows but refuses to speak aloud. We lost this war 3 years ago. Every battle since Midway has been defeat disguised as strategic delay. Every sacrifice has purchased only time, not victory. The question is no longer whether we will surrender, but how many of our people will die before we accept the inevitable. The recording captured sounds of movement, perhaps officials shifting uncomfortably, before Suzuki responded, Admiral, such words would be considered defeatist, even treasonous, in official channels. Yet in this room, we must speak truth. The recordings of our military communications, yes, gentlemen, we know the Americans are listening. Our signals intelligence has confirmed their capability. They have been recording our strategic discussions for over a year. The revelation created audible shock in the room. Someone, identified later as War Minister Anami, asked, they have been listening to our strategic planning? Our command communications? Everything, Suzuki confirmed. Every telephone line we believe secure. Every radio transmission we thought encrypted. They have recorded our assessments, our debates, our growing acknowledgement that victory is impossible. They know we cannot win. The question is whether this knowledge accelerates negotiations or makes them more intransigent. An intercept from April 7th captured a follow-up conversation between Togo and Suzuki discussing potential surrender terms. Togo's voice carried desperate hope. If we could preserve the imperial system, maintain the emperor's position, perhaps we could accept the other terms. Occupation, disarmament, war crimes trials, these are acceptable if we can preserve the throne. Suzuki responded, the Americans demand unconditional surrender. They will dictate all terms. Our only leverage is the cost we can impose through continued resistance. But Admiral Yanai is correct, we are negotiating with corpses. Every day we delay costs thousands of Japanese lives for diplomatic positions that may prove meaningless. The recordings from March and April 1945 documented Japanese leadership caught between military honor demanding continued resistance and pragmatic recognition that every additional day of war brought only additional casualties toward an inevitable conclusion. The voices captured on those recordings revealed men trapped by decisions made years earlier, calculating the price of pride in human lives. August 10, 1945. 1,420 hours. Recording Intercept Tokyo 081045 final captured the last significant conversation in the intelligence collection. Emperor Hirohito, in an unprecedented direct communication to the Supreme War Council, informed his ministers of his decision to accept the Potsdam Declaration terms. The recording, made possible by taps on the Imperial Palace communication lines, documented the voice of an emperor speaking words no Japanese monarch had spoken in over 2,600 years of imperial history. Hirohito's voice, carefully controlled but carrying immense weight, spoke with formal precision. The enemy has brought to bear a new and most cruel bomb, the power of which to do damage is indeed incalculable. Should we continue to fight, it would result not only in the ultimate collapse and obliteration of the Japanese nation, but also lead to the total extinction of human civilization. Under these circumstances, I cannot bear to see my innocent people suffer any longer. The recording captured absolute silence in the room before the emperor continued. I have studied the intercepted American communications regarding their atomic weapons program. They possess multiple such bombs and will use them systematically until we surrender. Conventional bombing has already destroyed 67 of our cities. The new weapons will make continued resistance meaningless. The time has come to bear the unbearable and endure the unendurable. Prime Minister Suzuki's voice came through the recording, thick with emotion. Your Majesty, the military has argued that continued resistance, even if ultimately unsuccessful, preserves national honor. Hirohito responded with devastating clarity. There is no honor in the extinction of the Japanese people. There is no victory in ashes. The Americans have demonstrated industrial and technological superiority we cannot counter. Their recorded intelligence on our communications proves they have understood our strategic thinking better than we understood our own position. We have been fighting an enemy that knew we were defeated before we accepted that knowledge ourselves. The final operational recording in the collection, dated August 14, 1945, captured War Minister Anami in conversation with General Umezu hours before Japan's official surrender announcement. Anami's voice carried profound sadness. General, I have ordered all units to cease hostilities. The Emperor has spoken. We who counseled continued resistance must now accept responsibility for every day we prolong the inevitable. The recordings the Americans made, they documented our journey from confidence to desperation to acceptance. Future historians will hear our voices acknowledging defeat while we still ordered men to die for a victory we knew was impossible. Umezu's response, the Americans will publish these recordings. Eventually, Anami replied. They will want the world to understand how completely their industrial power defeated us. They will use our own words, our own assessments, our own calculations to demonstrate that modern warfare is decided by factory production and resource capacity, not by warrior spirit or tactical brilliance. We provided them a complete audio documentation of our strategic collapse. The recording ended with Anami's final words. Tell the historians who will listen to these recordings someday, we fought with courage. We died with honor. But we entered a war we should never have started, against an enemy whose strength we catastrophically underestimated. Every conversation they recorded proved we learned this truth too slowly and at too high a cost. Lieutenant Commander Thomas Harrington, who had supervised the intelligence recording program from its inception, wrote in his final report dated August 16, 1945, the collection represents 4,782 hours of recorded conversations spanning November 1943 to August 1945. These recordings document the psychological defeat of an empire in real time. They capture the moment when Japanese military and civilian leadership realized they were fighting an enemy whose industrial capacity rendered traditional military virtues obsolete. Future generations will hear in these voices the true cost of modern industrial warfare, not just in casualties and destruction, but in the crushing weight of mathematical certainty that courage cannot overcome capacity. The recordings remain classified for 33 years. When partial transcripts were finally released in 1978, they revealed what intelligence analysts had known since 1945, that Japan's leadership had understood they were defeated long before they surrendered, trapped between honor demanding continued resistance and mathematics dictating inevitable defeat. The voices captured on those magnetic wire recordings spoke words that haunted both sides, the Japanese leaders confronting impossible arithmetic, and the American intelligence officers listening to men calculating the price of pride in millions of lives. Today, the complete collection resides in the National Archives, 4,782 hours of voices from history's most documented military collapse. The recordings that were supposed to provide tactical intelligence instead provided something far more valuable, a complete psychological profile of strategic defeat, documented by the defeated themselves, in their own words, speaking truths they never intended the world to hear. The magnetic wire reels that capture those conversations remain, preserved in climate-controlled storage, containing the haunting voices of men who realized too late that they had declared war on the impossible and lost not to superior courage, but to superior capacity operating at scales their planning had never imagined and their culture could not accept until industrial reality made denial fatal. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.